In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to be successful on the exercise prescription lab. Unfortunately, I don't have any samples of student work for this one, so I'm just going to have to walk you through item by item. So this will be partially an instructional video and partially like a how to be successful video. I hope it works for you. I don't have any samples of student work to show you for this lab, so I'm just going to open up the rubric on this side as normal, and I'm going to have the document open. I'll just have to go back and forth between the two, and I'll walk you through what I'm looking for. All right, so for part one, I'm basically asking you to either to redo your new client intake and to apply the ACSM screening algorithm. It's also acceptable for you, if you already have this information from your new client intake, to reuse it and just put in the relevant information here, because you're going to need it to write your exercise prescription and to determine at what intensity you're going to begin your exercise with your client. So here I'm looking for the same things that I was looking for in Lab 1. You can go back to Module 1 to review that. If you need to, look at my feedback if you need to. I'm expecting to see information here about their current level of physical activity, whether or not they're classified as physically active. Evidence of the Part Q. I mean, not evidence of the Part Q, but like you need to summarize what the findings from the Part Q were and determine whether or not the person has a history of cardiovascular, metabolic, and renal disease. And then an evaluation and a summary of the evaluation for signs and symptoms of cardiovascular, metabolic, and renal disease. Again, go back to Module 1 for that. Implement the ACSM screening algorithm. If they can begin at light to moderate intensity, then I'm expecting that you will be prescribing MIT. And if they've already been physically active, particularly if they're looking to increase from moderate to intense, or if they've already been doing intense activity, I'm expecting you to prescribe HIIT. And if you prescribe HIIT to somebody who you should be prescribing MIT to, that's a big problem, and you're going to get knocked on that. The reason that I have this information here is it's going to help me determine whether or not your prescription is appropriate for your person. So what is the goal that the person wants to achieve? I'm looking for, if they want to do weight loss, I'm looking for long bouts of steady state. If they're looking for fat loss and muscle gain, I'm looking for shorter bouts of steady state exercise at a lower intensity. If they're looking to gain muscle and lose fat, I'm looking for you to prescribe HIIT if it's appropriate, or MIT if it's appropriate, with something with like shorter bouts of more intense and longer periods of rest, something like that. Make sure you go through your materials to identify what is appropriate or not. You can find this information in the lab procedures. What equipment does your client have access to? I want you to actually have your client do these exercises, so don't be prescribing things that somebody doesn't have access to. That's why I have you write this, so that I know what to expect when I go down. Does your client have access to a heart rate monitor? I need to know this because I need to know how you're going to be prescribing intensity if you don't have access to a heart rate monitor. Are you going to be using RBE? Are you going to be taking a pulse? So that helps me see. What exercise does your client like? What do they dislike? I want to see that when you're a personal trainer, you want to be prescribing things that people like, and you want to be staying away from things that people don't like. So if you put a bunch of likes and then you put a bunch of dislikes, and then in your prescription you have a bunch of the dislikes, that's a problem. And then, does your client have any issues or limitations that you need to address in the prescription? That's more for you to know, like, oh, they can't be doing high impact, they can't be jumping, they can't be running, that kind of thing. Now, coming down to the, I want you to write a generic warm-up and a generic cool-down for both. For those of you who did not do well on the warm-up and cool-down lab, I recommend you go back to the video where I walk you through how to prescribe a warm-up and a cool-down. And I recommend you go back to the last lab to look at the exact components of the warm-up and the cool-down. I know a lot of you were just missing information, or you weren't applying the ACSM flexibility guidelines. And if you want to recycle what you already wrote, if you want to revise it, that's okay with me too. Or if you did well and if you want to use parts of that, that's okay with me also. I'm not going to be checking back to what you already submitted. But if it was too long, just keep that in mind and maybe cut it down if you can. Then you're going to prescribe one HIIT workout, and you're going to prescribe one steady state workout. So if you're confused about how to do this, I made a video about it, so you can go and watch it, where I walk you through exactly how it is that I would prescribe any one of these workouts. And then you're going to write a generic cool down. Again, just go back to what you did before if you need to. Now, I put here that I want you to paste everything in here, but I do have tables in here for you already. If you wanted to paste your warm-up from the other document, your warm-up and cool down in here, I would be okay with that also. Actually, I might revise this to add, like, to paste your warm-up and cool down here also. Yeah, but I have it here that you can go below if you need to. So I expect you to put your stuff in here, and I'm going to go back to the rubric and talk to you about what I'm looking for. So for the part 1 there, where you're doing the client intake, I'm looking for you to apply the ACSM algorithm correctly, answer all the questions, and select the appropriate starting intensity of exercise. For the warm-up, not that many points, obviously, because we've already done this, but I will expect you to go back. I'm looking for all the components, so I'm looking for myofascial release, followed by general cardiovascular warm-up, followed by a specific warm-up. If you have more questions about what is entailed in a warm-up, please go back to the warm-up and cool-down lab or module. For HIIT, I'm looking for you to, the most important thing I'm looking for is you to select the appropriate starting intensity. So you wouldn't select HIIT for somebody who's only been approved for light to moderate activity. And if somebody has been approved for moderate to vigorous activity, but for whatever reason MIT is a better choice for their goals, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm looking for bouts of work to be appropriate in length, bouts of recovery to be appropriate in length. And remember, there's like a relationship between the bouts of work and the bouts of rest. So the more intense the bouts of work are, the longer rest or the longer recovery you're going to need. And then the lower the intensity, the higher the intensity of the recovery. So that kind of inverse relationship. I'm looking for the modality that you selected to be appropriate. I don't really know what I mean by that. Probably HIIT versus MIT. And then the routine will help the client achieve their goal. So like I said, if you're choosing short bouts versus longer bouts of moderate intensity, that's appropriate for the person. Or if you've selected MIT for somebody who's approved to do HIIT, that whatever you've selected is with a reason that will help them achieve their goal. For the steady state exercise, I'm looking again for the intensity to be appropriate for the person. So I wouldn't expect somebody who's been approved for moderate to high intensity exercise to be doing a steady state routine at 50% of heart rate max. I wouldn't really expect that unless you could justify that somehow. I'm looking for the intensity to be appropriate. I'm looking for the length and the modality. The modality is like what the exercises that you've selected. So if you're using like weights to get the heart rate up, or if you're using body weight exercises to get the heart rate up. Modality here would be like hiking. So if you chose hiking as your modality, that would be appropriate for somebody who doesn't like cardiovascular training equipment or something like that, working out inside. They like to work out outside. And then the routine will help the client achieve their goal again. And that's based on the intensity and the length of the exercise. For more information about the correct starting intensity, you can refer to my mini lecture or to the PowerPoints. That information is in there. Cool down, again, go back to the warm-up and cool down lab. For the recording tables, so these are your recording tables. I'm expecting you to use the exercise prescription. Go back to the exercise prescription spreadsheet. The fitness assessment spreadsheet, where you did that in the last lab. You could use the same table in there, plug in the heart rate, the age of the person. you're prescribing the exercise for and get the heart rate ranges, I'm looking for a 10 beat spread. Then I'm looking for you to write the actual heart rate that the person had and then the changes that you needed to make. So very similar to Module 5 lab. Refer to the feedback on that. Same thing here. You're just going to write down what heart rate range you expected to get and then what heart rate range you actually got and any changes to the prescription that you need to make. So if you're prescribing rest, I put about 135 here, but the truth is if you're prescribing true rest, meaning no activity at all, you can't control the heart rate. So you just do your best to get the heart rate as low as possible in that time period, and that's what I'm looking for. And then your discussion questions, let me just review those. So how did you select the time, intensity, duration that you prescribe? Here I'm just looking for you to answer, like, what was your thought process in doing this? Did your client have any issues completing the protocols? Was it too hard? Was it too easy? Were their heart rates jacked up? Did they experience pain? Did you have to change it significantly? Based on the feedback for the partner, did the workouts do what they intended to do? So, I mean, I feel like these are self-explanatory. Was your client able to complete the volume? And again, you can prescribe this for yourself if you don't have somebody else. It's okay. I'm not going to be picky about it. What's more important to me is that you actually do this. You get the practice prescribing it and then reflecting on how well or how poorly your prescription went. So I hope this video was helpful, and I'm sure you guys are going to do great. You always do.